G'day, Stu. Welcome to Dreadnought News. I think we're into double digits now, so lovely to speak to you
10
again.
episodes. Yeah, good
I think
one.
so. I'll have once I upload it, I'll be able to see. But yeah, I mean, it's
I'll ring
interesting
along.
times, and it's
Yeah.
and look, it's another good week by Dutton. He's coming under increasingly shrill attacks by the media, especially Samantha Maiden. Samantha Maiden from news.com.au is acting, yeah, she has been acting like this for months, but she's acting like Albanese's press secretary. She's just attacking, making shrill attacks about some Indonesian comment he made this morning that nobody cared about. It was like a complete nothing burger. And she made it like the front page of news.com, like just attacking him. And I saw another video
That
of this.
the is that the stuff about the Russians wanting to use a military base?
Yeah, and apparently he verbaled the Indonesian foreign minister. I'm like, complete nothing burger. He was just commenting on publicly available information, and Samantha Maiden
Yeah.
thought, oh, it's a gotcha. And Penny Wong was like, oh, it's a gotcha. Yeah, so I don't think anyone bought into that, did they? Unless they were already fully anti-Dutton.
No, yeah, I think you're right on that.
And I saw another female journalist really attacking Dutton hard, saying, all of your policies, basically she was implying all your policies are male coded, and you're all like driving cars and saving fuel and going to factories, and where are your policies for female? And she was really like trying to imply that like he was anti-female because he hadn't released the poor guy, like, what can you say to that? Like, I'm trying to release policies that I think are good for everybody. Like, I don't, well, mums and are parts of families as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a good thing. Uh, it's an American politician, and he's very good at like just flipping over the table and like not accepting like
That's Stephen
the one
Miller.
with
I saw a clip by
no, it's
Stephen
not
Miller this
Steve
morning.
Miller.
It
He's
was
it's a
brilliant.
congressman,
Uh,
and he's very big on vets. So it was some CNN lady was trying to make a big meal about something that was going on. It was the outrage du jour, and he was saying, "I'm here to talk about Veterans Affairs." So answer me this question: Is the person who libeled a veteran down here in Florida still working for CNN? That's how you attack that. So if you don't know the reporter, just lay into the outlet,
yeah.
like news.com.au. Oh, that ass wipe of a thing. Are you guys still doing X, Y, Z? So don't bite with that because that once you're in the little language game trap bullshit that they like to play,
Mm.
you spend the entire time saying, I'm not sexist, I'm not sexist. And that's what they want. They want the soundbite of you desperately denying that you're XYZ. And like, don't be retarded. Everyone uses petrol.
Exactly.
Are you so sexist that women don't use petrol?
But I think
Do
the
you not
reporter,
use petrol? You're a woman.
no, everyone uses petrol.
Yeah.
And the left doesn't want us to, but they wanted to, like in the UK where they've make it illegal
Interesting that
to
that's
buy.
feminine coded, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. In the UK, they want to make it illegal to buy a petrol vehicle by 2030, which is 4.5 years away. So good luck with
Yeah.
that, UK. But
Yeah. Not
but I
gonna
think
happen.
this. Well, no, it's not going to happen. Not in a million years, but definitely not in 4 years. But I think this reporter did touch on something: is that there is a gender divide, a very clear one, and this ties back to something we were talking about before about the teals, because what the Teals have been doing is they have been paying TikTok influencers for cash for comment without disclosing it
Mm.
in flagrant violation of AEC,
Campaign laws, yeah.
campaign laws. Yeah, and yeah, and Allegra Spender got pulled up for this just today. That some like
I saw the
50,
Monique Ryan like train wreck.
yeah, that was a train wreck interview, wasn't it? But this
Yeah.
is what the Teals do. It's completely unethical. I think it's illegal as well. But the AEC is completely ignores it. They're more after concerned about the size of people's fonts if they're on a right wing party.
Yeah, or was it the VEC attempted to sue Andrew Bogut for uh for I can't remember what he commented on, but well, any communication that relates to a party, that effectively means
Yeah.
that anyone in Australia commenting on politics in any capacity at all has to have this was authorized by. You're being an idiot.
Yeah, but
Like
on the other hand, though, when the political candidate has specifically paid an influencer money,
they
the
don't go
influencer
for it, yeah,
the
which is a
influencer
clear
sh
cut violation of it's an ad. It's a straight ad, so you've got to declare it as an ad.
but this is who they're aiming at. They're aiming at the low propensity female millennial. That's who they're aiming at. Who doesn't watch news, doesn't read a newspaper, doesn't even
Mm,
use news websites. They get all of their information via osmosis via TikTok, Instagram.
mm,
That's who they're aiming at. And
mm.
that puts the polling in perspective somewhat. Like Dutton is never going to get through to these people. Like, how can he even get through to that? He's not even talking in the same galaxy that they inhabit. So that,
The LNP, as a general rule, though, I'm here to say, like I use Apple Podcast a fair bit, watching on binge. I still haven't seen a liberal ad on binge, on YouTube, or on Apple Podcasts. We are halfway through the campaign. Voting starts Tuesday next week. That is a fucking catastrophe, man. That's a
only
major, major problem, and it needs to get fixed. I went to my local candidate. If you look on the iPad, his picture doesn't even come up. So if you look at the iPad in vertical, not in landscape, you can't see his picture because it doesn't crunch it down. It's off to the left.
that's
So,
bad
but
web
if you
design.
hold it, you can see his picture. And and like his website is just it's like an act of campaign negligence from start to finish. So I get that, like politics is a team sport and all that, but it's all Peter Dutton. There's nothing about the electorate that he's campaigning in, nothing about what he is going to do for us.
Mm.
And you know what I mean? Like this election has been able to be called since December last year. My question would be, how is this possible? Like he's not even creating the website. The Liberal Party and the Labor Party both have like a central like candidate platform template website that they roll out to everyone so that it has like a roughly uniform look. So all he had to do was come up with like 10 bullet points on I'm going to do this for Jagger Jagger and I'm going to do that for Jagger Jagger and nothing. Nothing at all. He doesn't even attack the record of the current sitting member. So we were supposed to get a community battery. Hasn't happened. And like Elon Musk said, we can do grid level storage in 100 days or it's free. And that did happen in about 100 days over in Adelaide. So how can like whatever it is, KVA uh community battery, how does that take 3 years? You know what I mean? So like she's just got a litany of broken or failed promises, and there's nothing about any of it. You know what I mean? Like this, yeah. And I mean, I get it. Like he's she holds it by 12 points, so it's probably a lost cause. But I don't know. Like if you're gonna, why put your name forward if you're not gonna actually make a scrap of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I,
I feel
what
like this limp-wristedness in the Liberal Party is it's not a Dutton problem because Dutton has done something about it, but it is a persistent problem and it gets worse the further south you go.
Yeah. So the argument is we all the preferences on the right will come back to us anyway. We have to appeal to the middle. It doesn't work like that because elections are won and lost on the vibe. The vibe is
Mm,
contagious, and to get the vibe, you need to fire up people with enthusiasm, and you do that
mm,
by really not trying to be, all things to all people. You do that by really going after your target demographic and really firing them up. And then they become evangelists for you. And that creates a vibe in the community. And the Liberals haven't done that. I still think the election results will surprise everybody because the
I think it.
Labor
No, you
has
go.
been Labor has been, taking these polls, which basically since Trump's inauguration, they've just gone up and up and up in the polls. And that has not Trump has nothing to do with Australia at all. But for some reason, ever since then, they've gone up and up. So now they're all cocky and they're all smug. They all think they got this in the bag. That's a really off-putting attitude. That sort of smug attitude really puts off a lot of undecided voters, I think. So I think
Yeah.
even the polling where the polling is today on election night, a lot of people will be surprised, but there won't be a uniform swing to the Liberals, but there will be a lot of yeah, surprising
No,
results.
yeah. I was I was listening to Credlin last night or today or something like that. And they had someone on who was talking about how the green preferences break like it's something crazy, like
80-20.
85%
Yeah. 80, yeah.
uh
Oh yeah. No one's
to
preferencing
Labour.
Greens first and then directing their second preference to Peter Dutton.
No.
That's not happening.
Um, but the reverse is not true for like
Well,
Trumpet of
look,
the Patriot
no,
or
no,
One
but
Nation.
this is what I'm saying
So
about the polling, though, Stu.
yeah, yeah. So let me just develop the point a little bit. So I think so historically it's only broken about 50-50. So I like it,
60-40.
and that actually does make a bit of sense to me because the Labour Party did have a fairly solid right wing, which has been decimated. Uh,
Yep.
and John
Especially under
Howard decimated,
Albanese.
to be fair. Um,
But even as late as Bill Shorten, they did have a functional right faction. But now they don't. It's just the
yeah,
far
yeah,
left
but I mean, even
and the
Shorten
far
was,
left.
yeah. Um,
Labour right is relative term, I
like, yeah,
suppose. But
I would say Lindsay Tanner was the last socially right
yeah, I mean,
major player.
Mark Latham was considered. He was on the left, wasn't he? Now he's to the right of the Liberals.
I don't know what faction he was in, but Lindsay Tanner I've
That's a
always
good
thought of
question.
as sitting in that right wing faction.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and he was the last big swinging dick of that. He was the last one to be in government, and actually you needed his nod to be able to form to sit in the front seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Rudd would never have been PM without getting Lindsay Tanner on board.
No,
There
yeah.
is no there's no right wing kingmaker in the Labor Party anymore.
Not at
So
all.
but the point being is that One Nation have hoovered up quite a few of those people, I think, just because there's a deep entrenched dislike of Liberal if you're coming from a Labor camp.
Mm.
So you get a bit of a 50-50 break.
But
My view on that though is that this time is going to be different
I think so
because
too.
I think those people who can't vote Labor first, uh, who vote One Nation first and then preference Labor, are going to go down on, they're going to come down on this particular Greens. And this version of the Greens is doing everything it can to piss that voter off like
Mm.
you would not believe. Like, do you go to dawn service on Anzac Day?
Oh, well, sometimes.
I I I try to go every year now, and tradies, it loads and loads and loads of tradies. It could be that they're just normally up at that time anyway, but that tradie demographic, uh, which would be a pretty, they're probably not green, but probably pretty reliable Labor, um, really, really venerate Anzac Day, close
Mm.
to religious for them. And the Greens are going to have a rave dance party on Anzac Day.
Yeah, well, they
I,
ended up canceling that rave. But Stu, I want to make the point though that
mm,
the way the preferences flowed in the previous election that is different to where they're going to flow this time. That's because
yeah,
everyone
no,
knew
I agree.
Morrison was a creep, and so a lot of people would have preferenced Labor just to get rid of Morrison. But now
Mm,
Albanese has been a failure, and so I think a lot of people who previously voted for an independent or or a right-wing party and then preferenced Labor, I think that, yeah, like you said, that
I
demographic.
think if they, yeah, they'll vote Liberal this time round, or at least preference Liberal. But yeah, I think this particular incarnation of the Greens, it's extremely likely that will alter because we're staring down the barrel of minority government with like extremists, full-blown, out of control extremists. Like Marine
Airheads and
Faruqi is,
extremists.
yeah, Marine Faruqi is an extremist. That's all there is to it. She's a straight terror apologist. She demands that we fund UNRWA, which there is just no if buts or maybes. Funding UNRWA is funding Hamas terrorism. Um, so, and she's not the only one in the party that thinks that.
No,
Um, so I think this particular version of a minority government would be just horrific. I didn't think that the Gillard minority government was that bad because Tony Windsor was at least not totally insane. Like the guy's a jerk, but he's not an absolute lunatic. Whereas you've got like the Greens or just low IQ teals to form, and all of them want to do just ridiculous climate bullshit that is going to
yeah,
make everyone poor.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, but um, Dutton needs to hit high gear this week in the campaign and really start kicking goals hard because I think my view is that I don't think he's cutting through yet. I still think that there'd be a surprising number of people who couldn't tell you, who are a bit surprised that an election is coming, and certainly couldn't tell you that it's on 3 May.
Mm,
So, like with voting opening next week, he's got to get moving and he's got to start landing some blows.
mm, yeah. I'm still cautiously optimistic though, just because we won the voice, and we've got Twitter now X locked down. So
Mm.
I mean, they've got Facebook, they've got Instagram, they've got TikTok, they've got Reddit, they've got the mainstream media, they've got the state-funded media.
They've got Reddit. They've got the degenerate pedo furry demographic
Yeah,
locked in.
yeah. But we got the incel Gamergate demographic. Actually, let's start talking about that since that ties into the topic of the TV show in the UK called Adolescence.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting the way that the whole you know scenario has played out in the UK with the government basically treating it like a documentary.
So you're calling it a documentary.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it was the
You
government that called it a
saw on
documentary. Yeah, it was.
Starmer called it a documentary, and the BBC. I have to admit that, like, it's entertaining to watch them. Like, they are going to call Cammy Badenoch a white supremacist before the next election. It's going to happen. Uh, but it is entertaining to watch them squirm. Well, it just is. It just is. The the, yeah, that is going to happen. I'll put $10,000 on it right now. They'll call her some. They might not call her an outright white supremacist, but they'll call her like the blackface of white supremacy or
Base black
white
chick will make
supremacy.
a great deputy PM to Nigel
Yeah,
Farage in a coalition government. I
yeah.
like her. She's not very smart, but I still, still like her.
I do like her as well, but she was interviewed by the BBC, and the chick in the interview referred to
I saw that
adolescence as a
as a
documentary
documentary. Yeah, she said, "I'm too busy
on
having
at least
conversations."
3 occasions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have time to watch fiction. I'm going around having conversations about real life. They're like, don't you want to know what's really happening in the country? Why don't you watch this documentary? How
Yeah.
can you
So
combat that level of disinformation? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. And the BBC will say that you have to maintain the license fee because disinformation on the internet is so bad. But I think it goes to like I don't know how Britain recovers from where it is. I really don't. They are in trouble, man. There's like they are in serious, serious trouble. I read today that another inquiry, I think it's Badnick or Bradford, the Bradford Council, cancelled an inquiry into their grooming gang. Three dudes in their council area in prison. They gave a 13-year-old girl alcohol and heroin and kept the locked up in their basement while they handed it around to men of Asian origin. Um, each of them got 6.5 years. So these pedophile serial gang rapists and kidnappers. The mother of that 13-year-old girl said she complained to the police for years and nothing was done. So the reason they don't want to have the inquiry is that everyone, the simple fact is that the police look the other way on pedophile gang rape because they don't want to be called racist. It's that simple. It is that simple. And it's not just that town. There's like basically every city in the UK has now had a Muslim Pakistani rape gang. And the modus operandi is to get working class white girls who are under 15 addicted to drugs. I mean, there's cases of the police handing a 13-year-old girl back to the Pakistani abuser. Oh, there's nothing to say here. She was only a little slut anyway. She'd been drinking. Dude, she's fucking 13. What's wrong with you? So the UK is currently at the point where they would rather make up a crime to deal with than deal with the out of control pedophilic rape gangs plaguing their nation. It's unbelievable. How do you come back from that? I don't understand how you come back from that. I really cannot wrap my noodle around it, man. There's a good chance that the UK will see civil war in
Oh,
the next 10
deservedly
years or
so.
something.
Deservedly so. All of the institutions are rotten. And
To their core.
the most
To their
interesting comment,
core.
the most interesting commentary I saw on this issue was from Carl Benjamin, and he actually
Mm,
said it's actually not. It's actually the most interesting thing about this adolescence show isn't that they race swapped the perpetrator because
mm.
it's based on a real life stabbing where a black or an Asian or whatever stabbed another sort of person of color. And in the TV show, it's a white perpetrator. But that's not the most interesting part, Carl Benjamin says. The most interesting part is just to see how much everyone in the institution seems to hate their job, even in this fictional reenactment. Like from
Yeah, you're
the
right.
all the police officers just hate their jobs. They recognize that they're part of a corrupt institution. To like the social workers and like the psychologists and the psychiatrists that are interviewing him, they all like make it clear that they just feel like they themselves are partly to blame for this by the role they played. And it's true
It is
because
interesting that that inadvertently leaked into a made-up story. Yeah.
exactly. And Carl Benjamin says it's true because they all played a part in
Yeah. Yeah.
marginalizing maleism. So there's no spaces now where young males can go to be mentored by sort of like a male only space where they can be mentored by older men. That's like, oh, that's sexist. We can't have that.
That's verboten.
That
Yeah.
might disingen that might disin like that might cause discrimination against females. No, these spaces are necessary. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was interesting how they
That
said
is a really interesting point. I hadn't thought of that. The most interesting point that occurred to me, though, is British actors and entertainers, their latent pedophilia, they're unable to hide it. They can't do it. How really weird and creepy is it to call a 13-year-old boy an incel?
Yeah, that is weird and creepy, isn't it? It's like he's
That's
underage.
that's
He
that's
shouldn't be. He should
weird
be an incel.
pedo shit.
He should be
Yeah.
celibate. Whether
Yeah,
that's just
yeah, he's not incel, he's a child.
hmm,
He it's correct he shouldn't be having sex. What's the correct amount of sex,
a 13. Yeah,
dear
no,
show
13.
author,
Every
that a
13-year-old
13-year-old should be
should be
having?
celibate. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
100%.
you dirty weirdo pedo.
Yeah,
That
that's a
that to
really
me was just like I can't wrap my the psychologist, I haven't seen it, but I've seen extracts of it. The psychologist calls him an incel, describes him as an incel, a 13-year-old boy.
ridiculous. Yeah,
That,
yeah,
yeah, that's like how,
that's disgusting.
like, that's another, like, inadvertent seep through of their rotten culture, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that you'd look at a 13-year-old who hasn't had sex and go, well, that's kind of weird. They should be having sex by now. Like, no.
No.
Like, and like, I don't know what the current stats on it are, but generally speaking, my understanding is like the overwhelming majority of people leave high school a virgin. It's north of 70%. So the idea, so that's what, like 17, 18. So the idea that like just there's an inherent pedophilia sitting behind the person calling a 13-year-old an incel.
Hmm.
Because you think it's normal for a young child to be having sex. So much so that you're calling attention to the fact that he hasn't had sex.
Yeah, and that's replicated in real life when the police are saying, oh, to a 13-year-old girl, oh, she's just a little slut, and it was
Yeah,
consensual. It's like, no, it's a kid. Whoever did this to her needs to go to jail for
forever.
a long
Yeah.
time and then be deported. If they ever get released,
Yeah.
straight back to Pakistan, never given another visa ever again.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. And
And
the
their whole
judges
family.
can say, well, because he's a found because his human rights might be abused because he's a convicted pedophile, the judges that refuse to allow deportation, send them with him.
Hmm.
No, just
Yeah.
get out. The human rights of the pedophile might be abused in Pakistan. Well, that really sucks for that guy, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
well, that's what Keir Starmer was. He was one of these human rights lawyers. That's how he got
Yeah.
his knighthood. It's corrupt until that entire class of people,
Mhm.
including Keir Starmer first and foremost, is brought to justice. Then Britain can't improve.
Yeah. And I don't know, like the European Union is getting like overtly fascistic. You know what I mean? Like they just say Russian interference and cancel your election. No, can't have an election. You voted the wrong way. Like they're this far away from just doing away with elections altogether. The and Yeah, and it's consistent with that fascist propaganda thing that something like adolescence has created, right? So they've got their 2 minutes of hate against the hated class, um, which distracts from their actual problems. It's actually like weirdly Orwellian, you know what I mean? And like I've got an old colleague, and we kind of bonded in my job interview actually over Orwell, and I was saying, like The Road to Wigan Pier is I've read it now, I hadn't at the time, but just his ability to like he was a journalist, you know what I mean? Like he had this way of being able to write what he saw that was really rather unique. And she was talking about, and I didn't bring this up in the interview, but she was talking about, yeah, like TVs that watch you and all that sort of stuff in 1984 was really creepy. And like, yeah, yeah, no, it was really weird. But going through the back of my mind was what was weirder still was how the party was like super weird about sex. Like, actually a major part of the story. And uh, like, the party is pedophilic, really, really rigid about who party members are allowed to breed with, and they won't allow a loving relationship because you might put the relationship ahead of the state.
Mm.
So they have this weird arrangement where you're allowed to have a reproductive union that is loveless, but you can't have loving casual sex. And because of that, old party members are routinely married off to young children.
Mm.
It, and Keir Starmer is a communist. It's really that simple. Keir Starmer
Mm.
is like, and Peter Hitchens did good reporting on that stuff. Like he went to, where did he go to? I think he went to Romania.
Czechoslovakia.
Or
It,
was it Czechoslovakia or Romania?
it was
Either way,
Czechoslovakia.
like in the early 80s, went and worked for like the really repressive satellite Soviet regime.
Mm.
He's a communist.
He
He's a
100% is a communist.
dedicated communist.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that he's also like, it's weird that you see these echoes of George Orwell's observations of degenerate weirdo commies
Yeah.
echoed 100 years later in now commies. Is
Mm.
fucking weird, man. Eerie. It really is very eerie.
Yeah, I was having this discussion with a random leftist idiot on X today.
Mm.
Actually, the EU is more communist than Russia is in
Oh,
2025.
yeah, not even close. Yeah.
No, not even close. It's like at least double the amount of communism in the EU
Mm.
than in Russia,
Yeah, no, no. Absolutely.
with the exception of
Like,
maybe Poland, and yeah, Hungary.
yeah, but even Poland is, yeah, like Poland was, I mean, they've had that election recently, but before that, they were not real hot on the EU.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know, to be honest, I think it's still too soon to tell. But my view is um, Angela Merkel fatally wounded the EU with
Hmm.
the Syrian refugee crisis.
I think so.
I
Yeah.
think it is. I think it's dead. I think, and I think it's going to continue to get more and more aggressively sidelined. Like watching them flail about as China and the US have a trade war has been incredible. Well,
Hmm.
we care about terrorists. Sorry, who are you? What? So you're gonna up your tariffs on our wine. So who are you again? Sorry. You account for fully 8% of global trade. Oh, yeah, right. I think the EU is done. Like without the currency swap lines back to the Federal Reserve, the ECB is functionally insolvent. Um, so if they have another financial crisis,
Hmm.
and Trump is feeling uh, vindictive, like he could cause hyperinflation in Germany pretty easily,
Yep.
pretty easily. And Britain might be spared that because of Brexit, but I don't know. It's hard to say. You know what I mean?
Not with the communist prime minister. If Nigel Farage became the prime minister of Britain, yeah, Trump would save them, but not while Keir. And it's the
Oh,
same
no,
with.
no, no, no. What I mean is like the hyperinflation, because they're not reliant on the ECB. So the hyperinflation aspect would be um, because the ECB couldn't do the currency swap, they'd have to try and start buying USD with euros, which would tank the euro, uh, which would tank the euro value, which in turn would mean the cost of things would go up in euro.
Hmm.
And the ECB would have no point, it would have no option except uh,
Monetize.
to monetize it, and that would cause hyperinflation.
Hmm.
And the the Brits are too deeply integrated in key trade to survive that unscathed. Like, so they didn't survive German hyperinflation in the 20s unscathed.
Hmm.
It came back to them. And this time around, they don't have the dominions and preferential trade within the empire to help shield them from that.
No, they're going to
Uh,
be involved in a civil war soon.
yeah.
So
So I think,
they haven't got much
yeah,
more.
Britain looks fucking grim from where I'm standing, man.
Um,
It looks like it's in a very, very bad way.
mm,
And I seriously do not see like a clear road back to them. Like, I mean, that whole Brexit nonsense, they spent like 7 years doing everything they possibly could to reverse the outcome of a referendum.
mm,
Everything. They tried to have a second referendum. We've got to have a people's vote. And they they tried to sue on like every aspect of it. Unbelievable. And I don't know exactly how it's all polling these days, but my suspicion is that it would have only gone up in popularity since the original. Like, it would win even more decisively if the vote was held again today.
mm.
Um, and yeah, like that Keir Starmer, human rights lawyer, communist public servant part of the UK is simply uninterested in democracy if they don't control the outcome.
Yeah.
And they're actually surprisingly open about it. Like, when do you remember seeing that stuff about John Kerry? He was saying, I can't remember where he was speaking, but he was basically saying we're almost at the point now where you're not going to be able to vote out of climate change policy. Elections won't be able to affect this. We're almost at the stage now where we can force this on countries regardless of voting.
Mm.
So, like, if you get them in a candid moment, they're actually surprisingly open about their hostility to actual democracy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, as the old JFK saying was, those who make peaceful peaceful protest impossible make violence inevitable.
Well, I agree with you, Stu. Let's leave it there. That's a
Mm.
nice comment to finish on. So
All right.
let's catch up again for the next next week of the campaign. Let's see if
Yeah,
Dutton can turn it
absolutely.
around.
Yeah, I will. Before we do go, it's where do you land? I think that deduction of income against your mortgage, I think that's solid policy.
I like it. We're going to get kicked off. Obviously, it benefits me
Okay.
because I'm buying my first home and it's a new build. So obviously, I'm all for it. But
Nice. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, we're literally going to get kicked off. So thanks, Stu.